Hey friends, happy Christmas! I hope you're all enjoying this time with your family over this Christmas time as much as you're allowed to, with all of the restrictions that keep getting lifted, then increased, then lifted. This is just going to be a different sort of video, as a lot has happened this year, and I thought I'd just put out a video to chat and talk about everything, one I can maybe look back on when I'm older, so just bear with me. And I think I'll touch on selling the business, this YouTube channel, IT coaching work, investments, and that's probably enough. This year was an interesting one, a difficult one, and also the greatest year for me personally, which in itself is difficult to talk about because with the world as it is, and there's a lot of people going through a lot of bad things, and so it's been really important to me to try to be sensitive to all of that. But with that said, I also don't want to hide what has happened, and in particular in my field of work within IT and managed service providers, it's actually been one of the best years of all, where people have just kind of woken up and realised that they value IT much more than they did this time last year. The sheer amount of work that had to go into encouraging someone to invest in their IT systems in, say, December of 2019 is vastly more than you need now, because everyone now sees that if you don't value your IT, then it's like a surefire work to end your business. Anyway, and with that aside, and just a bit of a personal update on where I've got to this year. So to start off, let's talk about the business sale, because that's ultimately what this year has been mostly about for me. So in March of 2020, we sold the business. And to be honest, the whole process of selling the business was both one of the best things and one of the worst things in 2020. The process of selling the business was much easier than I first thought it was. Things like finding someone who wanted to buy and then figuring out the company valuation, super easy. The lessons I've actually learnt around selling a business have all come from after the actual sale went through, and many of them I'm not allowed to talk about for legal reasons. But one I can talk about was selling a business right at the beginning of a pandemic, which was such a strange experience, and one I think nobody else will actually ever be able to compare to, because it, well, just hasn't happened before. But we sold the business, and then 2 weeks later, the pandemic was declared here in the UK, and then everyone was ordered to go and work from home. And for me, that meant all of my staff went home, and it was all essentially down to the new owners to figure that whole thing out. But for someone who had, at least I think, had been fairly close to all of the staff, I found it really, really difficult, because with the new owners taking over, and my staff now being their staff, I felt like I shouldn't really be offering to help, because that was now their job. And so for me to keep sticking my nose in and checking in on people whilst I really wanted to, I didn't really think it was fair to the new owners, as it was them who needed to get to know everybody and figure everything out. Because of all of that, and for all intents and purposes, it was seen that I just sold the business and then buggered off with all the money, because, well, that's kind of basically what happened. I couldn't really say thank you to the staff, and I had things planned that I just wasn't allowed to do because of the pandemic. And so that left me in a huge void where I didn't feel like I should be talking to my staff, who I'd also class as my friends. And in return, I know that idea that I'd essentially sold out and then buggered off with the money to my island, well, I've lost some good friends in the process. Because nobody will run a business the same way, and perhaps naively, I just assumed that everyone, everything would stay as it was, which would be the very best outcome for the staff, the customers, who were my only real priorities in selling the business. It wasn't in, what is the most money I can get for this thing? It was, who will be the best fit, who will look after the staff, look after the customers, and run this business as close to how we did. But of course, nobody runs a business the same, and I've already seen people move jobs since the sale, which I am glad for, because ultimately I want them to be happy. But equally, it does upset me that they've had to look elsewhere. But ultimately, I have learned an absolutely incredible amount for if I was to go through the sale of a business ever again. I've definitely got some things that I would go do next time around that I didn't do this time, so I'll just chalk this one down to a life experience. Probably what most of us think about 2020 in general, to be honest. Moving on to this channel, because at the beginning of this year, I had, I think, around 500 subscribers, which took me 18 months to get to from putting out my first video as part of my IT business. In March, I sold that business, and by April, I had reached 1,000 subscribers, which is that goal that everyone strives to here on YouTube, because it's that time where you get some extra features in YouTube, and you can, importantly, monetize your channel. In terms of those features, and something I always get asked by, well, very few, is whether I have a Patreon or some way to support the channel. Well, recently I have been given access to this community feature here on YouTube, which basically lets you set up a subscription for people who want to contribute towards the channel, and in return they can get some extra bonuses or content. Now, I have set this up down below. I think there's a join button on each of my videos now, which I just set up for 99p a month, which in return will get you some special badges for when you leave comments on videos. And I'll of course give you a personal thank you, and maybe in future I'll open this up to doing some content only for members, private Q&A sessions, where maybe you can just ask me those questions which I can't or don't want to put out in the general public. If you're one of those very, very few people who ask me how they could help, then click on the join button, which I think is down there below, to become a member, and a huge thank you to you if you do. From March, we fast forward on to where we are today. We hit 5,000 subscribers very recently, which is just an insane stat to think of, that 5,000 people want to watch videos with this like ugly mug. It's just really humbling. We monetized the channel as soon as we could, and which basically means that Google runs ads on the videos, and I get a tiny cut of the fee that the advertiser has then paid. And as of December 2020, this comes in at around $1,200 per month on just pure AdSense revenue alone. So we've gone from earning nothing at April in this year to over $1,000 per month, and hopefully I can just sustain that level. And this is really where the crux of my whole journey has been this year, and one of the reasons why I'm such a huge advocate of video. I think everybody should have a YouTube channel. It's because of video that I've got to where I am today and can do what I'm doing now. So I guess let's talk about that and what and why exactly. So like I said, I was using video marketing as part of my business to build the brand and hopefully sell more IT. But what I didn't realise to begin with is that it would make my own brand and make me the face that everyone saw in each video, and which built a really personal relationship with a lot of people watching my content. Off the back of those videos, and even in the very early days, I had letters and gifts sent through the post thanking me for the content I was sharing, which was all about how I ran my business and the day-to-day and how we marketed ourselves. But what that has done is built up an audience for me, for those who know me, and on a pretty personal level, because I shared that in my videos. But basically, without dragging out this explanation out too much, is that I sold my business in March, I took the YouTube channel with me and continued to put out videos. Then what happened since selling the business is that quite a few people then approached me to ask if I could help them run their IT businesses. And for me, on a personal level, this was pretty amazing. I get to do all the fun and excitement of helping to grow and run an IT business without any of the stress of staff, customers, finances, legals, all of those things. So what I did was I put out a LinkedIn post. Actually, I put out 2 LinkedIn posts to ask if anybody else wanted me to help them. And I've had over 25 people book a call with me off the back of those 2 LinkedIn posts, which I didn't even post. I just scheduled them in Meet Edgar, all from making that decision to start doing video marketing as part of my business. So if just that's not a reason in itself for you to start doing video, both personally and in business, then I don't know what is. And then what fills my other time, and again off the back of these videos, I've been approached by a few companies who have asked me to produce videos for them, and the rest of my time is then free to make YouTube videos and focus on growing this channel more. And we've had our first sponsor from a business called Continuity, who I am super appreciative of. And then the rest of the time it's just spent with my family. I'm now around when I need to be, and more importantly when I want to be. So whilst 2019 Pete's work-life balance was just 2020 Pete is definitely a tick in the work-life balance checkbox. And then on to investments, and may as well cover this off in the same video since we're doing like a 2020 roundup thing. So for 2020, it has been the ideal year to invest, and I've never been a huge investor because I've never really had any amount of money to invest. But of course, with the sale of the business, I wanted to make sure that we were being very sensible, and something I've always known is that just to put money in the bank is just as good as putting it under your bed, because it just doesn't do anything. It just sits there and accumulates, and maybe 0.5% interest, which doesn't even cover inflation. Whereas 2020, there was of course the huge crash that came with COVID in March, but a huge opportunity in terms of investments and particularly around tech. But we essentially took some of our money, which we had reserved for paying off our mortgage, and invested in premium bonds. We bought premium bonds for me, my wife, 2 kids, and that was bringing in maybe like a 0.1% return. We've also invested into our pensions, which was managed by a local broker. However, we paid money into our pension when we sold the business, and a few days later it was worth less than we paid in, because of course the market crashed. I just couldn't understand how that happened. I mean, everybody, absolutely everybody was predicting the market would crash, right? All businesses closed, people forced home and not allowed to work and not allowed to leave, so it's going to crash. So anyway, we ended up moving our pensions into a self-managed fund where I actually pick the funds to invest in, because somebody once told me that the only person who's going to care about your money is you, not some pension fund, and yes, not even someone whose job it is, who is being paid to make you money, just you. You will care about it the most, and you will be constantly seeking to get the best return on your investment. Not some broker who's just going to throw it into one fund and then leave it there, which is basically what happened. And when I quizzed them on this, the response I got was, well, yeah, but so far we've returned you 5%, which is exactly what we told you you'd get. And my response was, that's cool, but I've made over 100% return in my own investments, I'm not qualified, and you literally own a business whose job it is to make money. Because in other news, we opened up an ISA for me, the wife, and 2 kids, and we invested our own money and picked our own stocks and shares, and we have more than doubled our money, and that was rooted in 2 main investments, which is Bitcoin and Tesla. Bitcoin has seen some huge increases this year. It went through a process called halving, which is basically where historically it just has a run up, and it's still on Z run up now. And Tesla has had such a huge run this year, which I could just make a whole video about by itself, but wow. It is something that I wouldn't actually tell my parents, or they're gonna know this now. But we actually pulled out our money that we stored safely in premium bonds and put that into Tesla as well, and just damn. Other than those 2, we've also held all sorts of other stocks and cryptos. And for crypto, it's always been Ethereum and Ripple, as well as Bitcoin. And for stocks and shares, it's been a mixture of seeing which companies have been hit the hardest and investing in those to catch them up on next year, as well as the tech stocks, which have of course been on a huge bull run this year. Tesla, Neo, Peloton, Apple. I've also invested in pretty much all of the pharmaceutical companies who were working on a vaccine. Some of them have done very, very well, and some of them have just done okay. But importantly and interestingly, absolutely none of them are in the red. Anyway, if you want more investment videos from me, then just let me know and tweet me and comment below. Just happy to make more if it's of interest to people. We're also looking at whether we should buy property, but currently sitting on that, as I had a feeling that prices were going to crash, although that hasn't happened, and with the vaccine coming out, I'm not sure if it ever will. But maybe finding some property to rent out, which could then double up as a holiday home, would be quite nice. And then lastly, something that's only just happened a couple of days ago, is that I am now a co-founder of a new video marketing agency that I'll be working on with a couple of people who I met last year. And hopefully I'll have some more news on that throughout the coming weeks and months, I guess, really. So that's quite exciting. Anyway, that's probably enough of me talking for now. So overall, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to every one of you who've been following me and watching these videos over the year. It has certainly been a roller coaster of a year for me, and I'm sure it's been a roller coaster for everyone else as well. So all I can really say is thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have watched a video, become an IT coaching client, or hired me to produce videos for you, or even just got in touch with me through through the comments, email, social media, then I really, really appreciate it. So have a great Christmas, a happy New Year. I hope you stay safe, and I look forward to talking with you more in the year 2021. Thank you. Bye-bye.